Hey guys, so today we have my January and February what I read because I didn't do one for Jan. I had a bit of a slower January Feb. I read 5 books in each month. No, I actually read 6 in Feb and then 5 in Jan. So subscribe with the bell icon for engagement. Let me just get into the video. So the first book that I finished in January was The Longest Ride, which is a Nicholas Sparks book. I really was getting into my cowboy era slowly at the end of December going into January, and then I remembered I watched The Longest Ride when I was younger and I loved it, and so I read The Longest Ride for the first time just to see kind of the source material, and I thought it was fine. I think I gave it a 3. Let me actually get my phone up so I can get my ratings for these. I liked the plot, and the thing about The Longest Ride is it's half a cowboy romance because you follow this like couple. They meet at uni and he's a cowboy, she isn't. He kind of brings her into her world. She's more of an artsy person. She brings him into her world. It's great. We're also following a second storyline of this couple years back and how their lives have merged. So you're kind of following 3 storylines. There's like the young couple storyline, the older couple storyline, and how they met back in the day, and then the bit where they kind of meet up, and that leads to the 3rd act of the story, and it's like a whole thing, right? So it's not just a romance, there's a lot more in it. Now, I think I gave it a 3 because I was way more interested in the modern day romance than in the older day, but I thought the older day one was fine, but I also just didn't really care for the bits that you got of kind of modern day of the man from the older romance. I felt like there was just too many plots and I only cared about some of them, so then I felt like I was kind of skimming through the ones that I didn't, so that then I can't really give it above a 3-star if I didn't care about all the plots included in the romance. But I felt like the ending was really satisfying, and I felt like it was really well written. That's not something you can say about some romances. I mean, I felt like it was really well written. Nicholas Sparks' way of words, it's really well written. The plots were great if you cared about all of them equally. I feel like in that time when I was reading that book, I just didn't care about all of the plots, so I kind of skimmed through some of them, and therefore the 3. Then I read The Risk by Elle Kennedy, which is part of the Briar You series, which is essentially the second part to the Off Campus series, which is up here that I'm pointing to right now. I really loved Off Campus. Some were weaker, some were stronger, but as a whole, it was like a 4 out of 5 series. With Briar You, I'm getting like 3 out of 5 vibes, that's for sure. So I read The Chase, which is the first one in Briar You, in December, and it was fine. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5. No, yeah, I gave it a 4. And then I read The Risk, and I gave it says a 4, but I think it's more like a 3 to me. It's like a 3.5, and I feel like I'm getting the vibe that with every book it's just gonna get a little bit worse and a little bit worse. So there's the play and the dare. There are these characters that I've never heard of, and I don't know, I feel like it's a little bit more disjointed with the series. With Off Campus, every book had characters that you heard about in the other book, so you felt like you were getting this like well-rounded, you were super interested in everyone and everything, whereas in this one it feels just a little bit more disjointed, where I don't really care about some of the characters, and then I feel like we're getting some of these characters that like I've never heard of before. I don't know, it's fine. I'm a lot slower to read these ones, so I do have 2 left, and I'm just not really that excited about them. I don't know, that's just me. Then I read Mile High by Liz Tomford because I heard amazing things. Now, I was actually building up to The Right Move, which is the second one in the series, but I want to read all of them. So I read Mile High and I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's like a 4/4.5 out of 5. It's like a pretty almost perfect book. At times I felt like it was just a little bit too long. You can see it's this one here. So that is quite long. And then they get shorter and shorter as they go on. I just felt like it was too long. There was a bit too much repetition for me. The same ideas again and again and again. Like, for example, the main female character is plus size, and she feels really insecure about that, and I felt like the representation was really amazing. But it was just mentioned a little bit too much, where it got to the point where I was like, is she this insecure about it? I just felt like it was mentioned so much that it was like, okay, we get it. It was starting to get a little bit like mocking almost, where I was like, okay, we don't have to keep on talking about the fact that she's plus size. Because of that, I felt like that bulked up the book, where it's just like a lot of conflict that just didn't really need to be there. But as a whole, it was a pretty perfect book, and it will lead me to me reading the second one, which let me get to it. Then I read Magnolia Parks, which I recently bought the physical books, and it is on Kindle Unlimited, where I do like to read my books. However, some that I really love, I will buy physically. And this is the edition that I really loved. They did make this new edition that I didn't really like, and it kept on being on sale in my Waterstones, and I was like, you're not gonna persuade me to get it, because I don't want it. But I have these ones, which are like the big, beautiful ones. Oh, excuse me, sir. Just going for a fly. These are like the perfect ones. And obviously this one came out recently. I think there's one more coming out after this, which is going to be the last Daisy Hates book. And if you don't know, essentially these are all under the Magnolia Parks world, which is like, it's the same universe, the same fictional universe. This is the last book, Into the Dark, for Magnolia Parks. It's the longest one too. I mean, she's bulky and she's big. So we have Magnolia Parks, and then we have Daisy Hates. Then we have Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home. We have Daisy Hates, The Great Undoing. And then we have Magnolia Parks, Into the Dark, which is the last of the Magnolia Parks under the Magnolia Parks universe. But then after this, we're going to get one more Daisy Hates under the Magnolia Parks universe. So it follows two different protagonists and two different couples, but it's kind of like within the same world, the same friendship group, kind of. I read the first one in January, and I still haven't read the second one because I've got so much to catch up on. But I really liked it, honestly. I think if you don't like the miscommunication trope, you don't like toxic relationships, you don't like just messiness, you want to see like a cute romance where everything's healthy and beautiful and there's like a little bit of conflict, these won't be for you. But I grew up reading Wattpad and fan fiction, and I also really, my guilty pleasure is After and the After series, and so this is like perfect. I loved it. I don't root for the couple, but that's not really what I'm here to do. It's a toxic couple. It's a lot of miscommunication, but I love the world, I love the way it's written, and I'm looking forward to reading the other ones. I'll be reading them half between my Kindle and half on physical, but that's what I do anyway. So I gave that one a 4 out of 5. Then the last book in Jan was Heatwave, which is a short novel, and it's about a guy that witnesses a guy who's dying and does nothing about it, and it deals with his paranoia and guilt that eats him alive until the last page, and it is pretty good. I gave it a 3. I thought it was well written. It just wasn't, maybe I expected a little bit more from that, but it was good. It was a good book. I have nothing else to say about that. Then we have Feb. I started out reading The Right Move, and that was a 5 out of 5. It was a 6 out of 5 actually. It was 100 out of 5. This is one of my new favorite romances of all time. I don't know what would beat this. I really don't. But I'm just not one to like throw out statements like this is the best book of all time, because I don't know yet. Maybe it's because I just haven't read every single book in existence of the universe. But right now where I stand with this is that it's like my favorite romance of all time. Yeah, it's in the same universe. You're following the first book. These universes are so hard to explain. So in Mile High, we have Stevie, who's the main female protagonist. Who is she dating? What was his name? Xander's. There we go. Xander's. And in the second book, we're following Ryan and Indy. So this one, we have Stevie, the main character, and Xander's. Okay. Stevie is a half of a twin duo, and her twin brother is called Ryan. Enter Ryan, right? And Indy is Stevie's best friend from work. I hope that explained everything you need to know. The first book follows a friends with benefits type, turn into a relationship type thing. It's a workplace romance. There's a lot of that. Now the second one is a proximity thing, right? Which, oh my God. Okay, so Indy needs a place to live because her boyfriend of 7 years cheated on her. Stevie knows that if Indy has nowhere to live, she's gonna have to move out of Chicago. And obviously Stevie wants her best friend in Chicago, so she says to her control freak brother, hey, could you let this chaotic girl live with you? And he's like, absolutely not. And then he finally lets her because he loves his sister. It's a proximity thing. Oh, the tension. Oh, the drama. I read it all in one go. That's what I'm gonna say. I say it was all in one go. I started reading it at night at like 11 p.m. and I stopped reading at 4 a.m. because my eyes couldn't handle anymore, but I had like 50 pages left. And then I literally woke up in the morning, and as I opened my eyes, the first thing I did was finish the book. So I'm saying it was like in one go with a nap in between, essentially. It was a perfect book. I haven't giggled, kicked my feet so hard in so long. It was perfect. It was a perfect book. If you're gonna read anything from this list, read The Right Move. Now, you don't really need to read Mile High if you don't want to, but it definitely adds a lot of context, a lot of family context, a lot of character development. So I would recommend reading Mile High because it's also really good, and then reading The Right Move. But if you really, really, really don't want to read Mile High because you think you'll hate it or something, or it's like too long, you don't have the time for it, whatever, you can just read The Right Move on its own as a standalone if you want to. I gave it a literally 6,000 out of 5. Then I read Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, who has become one of my new favorite mystery authors, like mystery thriller. It's about a girl that goes missing and her family's essentially trying to find her and figure out what's happening, and there's just a lot of like, I can't even begin to explain the plot to you guys without ruining it for you, so I think you should just read it. Lisa Jewell writes amazing mysteries. I've read 2 now, and I'm looking forward to reading more. Then I read None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell, which is about a podcast host. So there's dual perspective, with the perspective of a woman who seems to have everything. She's got the family, she's got the rich husband, she's got her own podcast that is super successful. Then we have a second POV, which is a woman kind of going through it. She seems to have been groomed by her husband and she's still with him. Her life is kind of not what she wanted, not what she needed. There's a lot of turmoil in her family, there's toxic relationships, and this podcast host essentially does podcasts on women that have changed their lives. And this woman right here hasn't changed her life yet, but she wants to. So she goes to this woman and she says, hey, can you do a podcast on me? Because I feel like I'm going to change my life soon. And so you start to realize that a lot of what she says isn't true. Or is it? And then you start second guessing yourself. There's a lot of like almost gaslighting of the reader because you don't really know what is true and what isn't. And it's just like an amazing mystery. I think I gave both of those a 4. Actually, I gave Then She Was Gone a 5, and I gave None of This Is True a 5 too. So that's how I felt when I read those books. Then I was reading Caught Up by Liz Tomford, and I haven't finished it. It's a 50% DNF, but I'm going to put it in here anyway because I read 50%. I hate it. I can't believe I went from such a high of like this 4.5 out of 5 to this like perfect, magnificent, this is the best romance I've ever read of my life, to like really struggling with the third book. It's about a baseball player. He does make appearances in the first books, and he is a single dad of a baby toddler child, and she is forced to be his babysitter. Now this is the weakest of the plots. I believe this the least. She is a successful chef, a pastry chef, and her dad manages to force her to be a babysitter for a child. I don't know, there's just something about, I get their motivations when you read it on the page. To me it's just the least believable. I didn't mind the baseball player. I hate the female protagonist with a passion, a burning passion. I think she's a weird pick-me. She is inappropriate, I can't even begin to explain what I think about this character. She's immature. There is an age gap a little bit, like probably kind of like within the 10-year zone. She's in her like mid to late 20s. I think she's 26, and he's like 34 maybe. At 26, like, you're not this immature. She has a career, but she acts like a child. She calls him baseball daddy in front of a bunch of different people. A lot of her humor is very pick-me, childish, like middle school boy. She understands that he has trust issues. His child has been abandoned by their mother. He needs someone in his life who's going to be a constant, a stable for his child, and therefore he is not ready to date or just casually date. And she just keeps on guilt tripping him and just making him feel bad. Oh, I can't. This book is, if I rated it right now on Goodreads, I would give it a 1 or a 2. But I haven't rated it because I haven't finished it. So I haven't put it into my like read. It's still in my like want to read because I just can't get myself to do it. Maybe I'll get it on like Audible, or like I'll find it somewhere so I can just like quickly listen to it while I'm doing other things. But I can't spend my time sitting down and reading the words on the page because I hate this female character. I think everyone else is fine. I think all the other characters are fine. I can get over the plot. I can get over a bunch of things. If I don't like the main character whose head I'm supposed to be in, and that wasn't the point of because I think there's a misconception, like I love unlikable characters when that's the point of the book. In a romance, you're supposed to like the protagonists. So I couldn't get over this, sorry. And I'm someone who liked Magnolia Parks. I'm someone who got over After. I can't, this character infuriates me actually. Anyway, then I read Missing by Kate L. Slater. I've read a bunch of books by Kate L. Slater, you guys know that. This one was fine. I think it was like, I'm starting to get a bit bored of these books. I don't know, this one was a 3 out of 5. It wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. Her brother got killed by someone who recently was released out of jail, and then as soon as he gets released out of jail, she kind of runs into him, and then her child goes missing, and that's where it goes from. You kind of don't know who did it, and you don't know what's going on. That's it. I can't tell you guys anymore. I think it was fine, but it wasn't kind of like the Lisa Jules that I read this month. But I do like Chaos Slater. I've read other books by her, but I felt like I started off with a really, really strong one with her. I can't remember what it was. Every book after that was weaker and weaker, and I think it's because they weren't living up to that like first book that I read by her. And then I read Heartless by Elsie Silver, which, as you guys know, is the Chestnut Springs series, which I have up here. I don't know if you guys, no, you guys can see it. It's the second book of the series, and I've, spoiler alert, read the third one in March, which is obviously now, and I'm currently reading the next one, which is the fourth one, but I won't tell you guys about those until my next what I read. So Heartless I gave a 4 out of 5. I always forget names, I'm very bad at names. So it follows Cade and Willa. I loved this couple. It was great. It was an age gap romance. He was a single dad. See, this is like, so Caught Up did it not well, but Elsie Silver did it really well. He was a single dad. She became his babysitter because her friend kind of got her that job so she can stay in Chestnut Springs for a while, and it develops into a relationship. And it was spicy, it was beautiful, it was well written, well developed, the characters were likable. Willa was younger than, I think it was like a similar age gap as well between Willa and Cade, as well as whatever their names are in Caught Up. But Willa wasn't immature, she was fun. She brought some life into both of their lives, like the son and Cade. But I felt like she wasn't immature. She was just exciting, and she understood boundaries, she understood attachment, she understood where he was coming from as a father. And I felt like it was just a beautifully well developed book and romance, and I loved it, and I gave it a 4. I don't know what would have made me give it a 5. I'm kind of stingy with my 5s. So that was the last book I read in Feb, and yeah, I'm already reading a bunch of books in March, so hopefully the next one will be bulkier. More bulky. So subscribe, hit that bell, like, comment for engagement. Let me know what you guys have read this month, last month, what you're reading currently, what you're loving, not loving. If you've read any of these that I told you guys about and what you think of them, whether you agree or disagree, let me know, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.